The world didn't just talk, it screamed. Porsha Williams, Atlanta's loudest diamond. The woman who could turn any brunch into a battlefield, was sitting in a foreign cell halfway across the world. New velvet couch, no confessionals, just fluorescent lights and the echo of her own name bouncing off concrete walls. The same mouth that once made her famous had now written her sentence. News outlets froze on her face. Fans gasped, haters rejoiced, and somewhere in Dubai, Simon Guobadia watched it all unfold with the stillness of a man who had already planned the ending. It all started with one moment of rage. Their marriage had ended long before the lawyers stepped in, but pride kept them performing. What looked like luxury and love online was really control and quiet humiliation. When Porsha Williams finally walked away, she didn't walk gently, she walked with fire. During her divorce testimony, she blurted the words that would come back to haunt her. He's running a legal business in Dubai. In Atlanta, people laughed. In Dubai, that statement was a crime written in ink. A few weeks later, a letter arrived sealed in gold from the Ministry of Justice. It wasn't fan mail, it was a warning. She showed it to friends, half smiling, saying, "Simon's still playing games." They told her to ignore it, so she did. But Dubai never forgets. When she landed there for a luxury influencer event, she expected cameras and champagne. Instead, she met silence, men in uniforms, and hands reaching for her passport. Within minutes, Porsha Williams realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was an arrest. She tried to explain, her voice shaking, but every word dug her hole deeper. The translator's calm tone only made her panic worse. By the time she was taken into custody, the world already knew. Her phone lit up with missed calls she would never return. That night she sat on a hard bench, staring at the walls, repeating the same thought. This can't be real. The trial came fast. Dubai's system moved with precision. The court wasn't interested in celebrity, it wanted facts. Gone were the sequined gowns and practiced smiles. Porsha Williams, the woman who once filled TV screens with glamour, now wore beige. The judge asked if she had proof of her accusations. She tried to explain it was emotion, not evidence. The prosecutor raised his hand and played the footage from her U.S. divorce hearing. Her exact words, her voice full of anger. The judge leaned forward. "Do you have documents, Mrs. Williams?" She swallowed hard. "No, I was just angry." The courtroom fell silent. Even the translator paused before repeating it. That pause felt like the end of everything. The gavel struck once, twice, then the sentence dropped like a bomb. 5 years imprisonment. She didn't move. She couldn't. The same lips that once shouted "Who said that?" on reality TV now couldn't form a single word. Simon Guobadia sat still, his expression unreadable. The man she once called her husband watched her crumble like an actor satisfied with his scene. Her lawyers begged for appeal, citing misunderstanding, emotional distress, and cultural difference, but the judge's face stayed stone. The verdict was final. By sunrise, every gossip page had the same headline: Porsha Williams sentenced to 5 years in Dubai. Screenshots spread like wildfire. Some fans cried, others laughed. Bravo refused comment. Her mother released a short statement asking for compassion. In Atlanta, her mansion sat dark. The same house that once hosted filming crews now looked like a memorial. Inside a gray cell, thousands of miles away, Porsha Williams whispered to herself, 5 years for words. Prison wasn't like TV. There was no sympathy, no confessionals, no dramatic background music. The lights stayed on all night. The guards called her Miss America, part joke, part fascination. She scrubbed floors, folded sheets, and replayed her trial in her head again and again. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Simon Guobadia sitting calm while her life fell apart. His silence cut deeper than his words ever could. She began writing letters she couldn't send to her daughter, her mother, even to him. The paper became her therapy. One note read, "I spoke out of pain, but pain should never be louder than truth." Across Dubai, Simon Guobadia lived like nothing happened. He attended rooftop dinners, shook hands with investors, smiled for photographs. On Instagram, he posted cryptic captions, "The truth always defends itself." Thousands of likes poured in. Even from her cell, the guards showed her the photo, smirking. That one post stung more than the sentence itself. The world thought he had one. Back in Atlanta, support fractured. Some castmates said nothing, fearing Bravo's legal restrictions. Others whispered that Porsha Williams had finally gone too far. Only Candy Boris posted a single message, "Pray for her." It was simple, honest, and it shook the internet. Underneath, fans debated whether Simon Guobadia had used his wealth to destroy her or whether Porsha's mouth had written a check her. Freedom couldn't cash. Days turned into weeks. The same walls that felt suffocating at first slowly became familiar. She started teaching English to 2 young inmates. She began leading small prayers on Sundays. The guards softened. Some even respected her discipline, but peace never lasted long. Her lawyer returned with new papers. Guobadia had filed additional claims, accusing her of falsifying documents tied to their joint business accounts. She froze. "That's not true," she said quietly. The lawyer sighed. "It doesn't matter what's true here. It matters what they can prove." That night, she broke, not with screams, but with silence. Tears came without warning. She thought of her daughter's laugh, of Atlanta's bright mornings, of how her voice had built her empire and destroyed it all in the same breath. For the first time, she stopped thinking like a celebrity. She thought like a mother who wanted to go home. The next morning, she forced herself to stand taller. She washed her face in the cracked mirror and whispered, "You can take my freedom, but not my faith." The inmates noticed. One asked if she used to be famous. She smiled faintly. "I used to be loud," she replied. They laughed softly. For the first time in months, she joined them. Outside those walls, Guobadia continued to play the role of the composed He stayed clean, calm, deliberate. He posted another message: "Some lessons are learned in silence." The words circled the internet like prophecy. Inside her cell, Porsha Williams stared at that quote written in a newspaper margin and whispered, "Then let silence be my teacher." But destiny had its own plans. One afternoon, while she sat picking at the same bland lunch, a guard approached quietly. He slipped a folded note under her tray, avoiding eye contact. Her pulse quickened as she opened it. The handwriting was shaky but clear. "An American journalist has arrived. She's asking questions about Simon." For the first time in months, she felt her lungs fill fully. Her hands trembled as she pressed the note to her chest. Somewhere out there, someone still believed she wasn't the villain. Somewhere beyond these walls, truth was moving. That night she didn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. She thought about the journalist, who she was, why she cared, whether she might uncover the proof that could undo everything. For the first time in months, Porsha Williams didn't feel forgotten. She felt seen. A small, fragile hope flickered inside her chest. Maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe this was the moment before the redemption. By the time the whispers reached her cell, Porsha Williams already knew something had shifted. The guards walked faster, their voices quieter, and when she looked through the bars, she could see nervous glances she hadn't seen before. For weeks, nothing changed. But that morning, the air felt different. A folded note appeared under her tray again. "The journalist has proof," it said. Her heart pounded. For the first time in months, she wasn't thinking about survival, she was thinking about freedom. The journalist's name was Alyssa Monroe, a fearless investigator from New York known for uncovering what powerful men wanted buried. She'd been following Guobadia's financial trail for months, connecting dots between shell companies and offshore accounts that matched Porsha's testimony word for word. What everyone once called defamation was starting to look like truth. Alyssa arrived in Dubai with documents, emails, and even a witness, a former employee who claimed Simon used her name to register a company under Porsha's identity. It wasn't just gossip anymore. It was evidence. When Porsha's lawyer arrived to deliver the news, she almost didn't believe him. "They reopened your case," he said breathlessly. "The U.S. Embassy is involved now. There are questions about Simon's filings." For the first time in months, her tears were tears of relief. She whispered, "They finally listened." The guards who once mocked her now treated her differently. Some even smiled. Hope is contagious, even in prison. The next week was chaos across Dubai. The Ministry of Justice ordered a review of Simon Guobadia's business records after the journalist's findings hit international press. His name, once pristine, became a headline dripping with suspicion. He called the reports fake, but dripping with suspicion. He called the reports fake, but journalists uncovered layers of inconsistencies, false declarations, missing paperwork, and unexplained transfers. Even the same company Porsha had called a shell in court suddenly vanished from public registration. What once condemned her now defended her. Inside her cell, Porsha Williams tried not to let hope consume her too soon. She'd already learned that victory could turn to punishment in seconds. Still, something in her spirit stirred again. The same strength that once made her fight for every storyline on camera was now fighting for her life. She prayed, she wrote, and she waited. 3 days later, her lawyer returned, smiling for the first time. "They scheduled a review hearing," he said. "You'll appear through the glass again, but this time, the world is watching." The hearing room was packed. Reporters lined the hallways. Simon Guobadia entered with his usual composure, dressed immaculately, every movement rehearsed. But when the judge began listing the new findings, the unregistered entities, the false ownership trails, his eyes twitched. The prosecutor read from Alyssa Monroe's documents. One whistleblower appeared by video, confirming that Simon had hidden assets by using Porsha's name on Dubai papers. The courtroom gasped. The silence that followed felt like justice waking up. Porsha Williams stood behind glass, thinner but stronger, eyes steady. For months she had been the accused, the disgraced reality star, the woman whose words had ruined her. Now, the same words were saving her. Her attorney spoke firmly. "Your Honor, under Article 372, if the statements are proven true, defamation cannot stand." The judge nodded, expression unreadable. "We will review the evidence." The next 3 days crawled by. Every hour felt like a heartbeat waiting to break. The guards whispered updates from the news. Hashtags like #justice for Porsha and #free Porsha trended again. But this time they carried faith instead of pity. Even Bravo issued a short message supporting her appeal. For the first time since her arrest, Porsha Williams wasn't just a headline, she was a symbol. When the final hearing began, the courtroom was silent. The judge spoke slowly, through an interpreter. After reviewing new evidence and testimony, the court finds that the statements made by Porsha Diane Williams were not lies. They were claims based on genuine concern, supported by emerging proof. Therefore, the previous conviction is overturned. For a moment, no one breathed. Then the room erupted. Reporters shouted, flashes burst, and Porsha Williams covered her face with trembling hands. Her lawyer pressed against the glass, whispering, "You're free." Simon Guobadia left before the session ended. His empire began to crumble in the days that followed. Dubai froze his accounts pending investigation. Business partners vanished. For years, he had controlled the story, but this time, the story controlled him. On his social media, he posted one last message before disappearing. "She won the battle, but truth will judge us all." When Porsha Williams finally walked out of the prison gates, the air felt unreal. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, but she just whispered, "Don't ever let the truth die in silence." Those words spread faster than any scandal. They became her redemption. Back in Atlanta, the adjustment was quiet. Her mansion no longer felt like victory, it felt like memory. She sat in her daughter's room, watching her sleep, realizing freedom wasn't about fame, it was about peace. The woman who once shouted for attention now moved with calm. She declined interviews, choosing silence over spectacle. When she finally spoke, it was through purpose. She launched a foundation for Americans wrongfully imprisoned abroad and began filming a documentary titled Voices Behind Bars. The same media that once called her dramatic now called her brave. Months later, she stood on a stage at a law conference in Washington, speaking to a crowd of diplomats and activists. Her voice didn't tremble. "I learned that words have power," she said. "They can destroy, but they can also defend. And sometimes, silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom." The audience stood and applauded. In the crowd, her mother cried. But late at night, when the cameras were gone, Porsha Williams still thought about Dubai, the walls, the smell, the sleepless nights, the whisper that had sparked her hope. She remembered how it felt to be voiceless, then to speak again. And as she looked out her window, she smiled softly, realizing that survival had turned her pain into purpose. The world once called her the loudest woman in Atlanta. Now, she had become something far greater, the voice that refused to die.